We're here today with David Wheaton of Lifeline Children's Services talking a little bit about orphan care. And we're really excited about that, David, because your ministry and our Minus One ministry really line up in the areas we like to emphasize. So tell us a little bit about your ministry.
Well, Lifeline Children's Services, I think, is a good partner with First Presbyterian because I was here not too long ago at the missions conference and got just a flavor of the heart of this church for the least, for the lost, for vulnerable children. And that's what we do at Lifeline. We are a ministry committed to the proclamation of the gospel, committed to discipling others. We happen to use the platform of adoption and orphan care to accomplish that, but we're really all about the gospel, and so that really resonates when we hear about First Presbyterian, when we hear about Minus One, we feel a kindred spirit. And basically, our ministry is involved in adoption domestically and internationally, as well as foster care, as well as orphan care. And by orphan care, I mean the majority of orphans, 143 million orphans in the world, most of them are not going to be adopted. Right. They're going to age out of whatever system that they're in, foster or orphanage or whatever, and the statistics for those kids is not good. And so we go with the gospel to those children in those orphanages. We go with life skills, and so that they don't become one of the victims or one of those horrific statistics, but have a hope.
Great. And we're going to have an event here on Orphan Sunday on November 3rd that you're going to help us with. We're initially going to have a really neat experience of the orphans table. We're going to share a meal that orphans around the world have. We're going to have an update about our recent trip to an orphanage in Haiti where we got to do some of those things that you were talking about. Yeah. And then you're going to speak to us, so tell us a little bit about what we might hear there.
Well, I think that for all of us, we need to look at what does caring for vulnerable children mean for me? What does it mean for my family? And what does it mean for us as a congregation? And that's going to look different person to person, family to family, and even church to church. And so trying to figure out, how do I recognize what God's call on my life is to obey James 1:27 that says, true and undefiled religion in the eyes of God the Father is this, to visit widows and orphans in their distress and to keep oneself unstained from the world. So really that evening at the orphans table, we're just going to look at that verse and consider, what would that mean for me? What would that mean for my family? And what would that mean for our church? And to recognize that God's call is unique and specific for each of us, and just to figure out what is the pathway to seek God's heart for us about that.
Great. So after that event, there's going to be a couple of follow-up meetings for people who might feel like they want to move further. On Monday, we'll have the adoption information, and on Tuesday, a foster care informational meeting. So tell us a little about those as well.
Yeah, I recognize that in a church this size and in a church with this heart, there are families that have been thinking about, praying about, is God calling us to adopt? And really, James 1:27 is not a command to adopt. It's not a command to foster. It's a command to care for orphans. But part of that will be some families will be called of God to adopt. The command to care for orphans is universal for all believers. The command or the mandate to adopt is specific for certain families. And so if there are families at First Pres that are thinking about adoption and wondering, what would that look like? What does a domestic adoption look like? What does international adoption look like? Is God calling me to adopt? How can I fund my adoption? How much does it cost? Where do I start? What is a home study? All those kind of things that just seem like a mountain of questions. This is an information meeting to get those questions answered. And then the foster care event will be to look at how can we as a church and how can individual families in this church provide a network of support and care for children that find themselves in foster care. Most kids find themselves in foster care because of abuse or abandonment or neglect. And so the church has the opportunity to come alongside and to care for these children for a brief chapter of their lives. Maybe they're going to be reunified with mom and dad. Maybe their parental rights are going to be terminated and those children become available for adoption. But the foster family is in a unique position to care for that child during that season, that chapter, in a way that provides gospel grace to them while they're in their home.
So we're really looking forward to this event on November 3rd for Orphan Sunday. We're hoping that we have a great turnout for our event, so please invite anyone you think might be interested from the community. It's available and open to anyone who would like to come and learn about how they can answer this call that God has made to care for orphans. We will have opportunities to sponsor kids in orphanages, as well as hear more about the things David just spoke about. This will be a family-friendly event, so please bring your children. It'll be a great experience for them as well, and we look forward to seeing a lot of you there that evening.